Still watching Startup Central right here on ET Now, with India ordering at a record rate on New Year's Eve. My colleague Chandra Srikanth caught up with the management of Swiggy. Let's listen in to the key trends that they highlighted as part of this conversation. We are in conversation with Swiggy COO Vivek Sunder. It's been an unprecedented New Year's Eve for Swiggy, for other food delivery apps, because India decided to party at home and placed an insane amount of orders. In fact, my sources tell me that the orders per minute on Swiggy last evening crossed 4,000 per minute. It is an unprecedented figure, and to tell us more about the night that was, we have Vivek Sunder joining us live on ET Now. Vivek, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you managed to get some sleep, because when I reached out to you yesterday, you said this is absolutely mad demand, something that you hadn't seen before.
Indeed. Happy New Year to you, Chandra, and also to all the viewers. We've obviously had a fantastic New Year Eve. This is the equivalent of the Super Bowl as far as our industry is concerned. So, super happy to say that it's been a year like never before for many people, but definitely it was a night to remember yesterday. And by the way, I have to give you one tip. You should be in constant touch with your sources, because I think you may have checked with your sources at 7 o'clock. And after that, we just locked in and said, let's go deliver all the crazy number of orders. An hour or so later, if you had checked with them, that number that you quoted would have been dwarfed in comparison.
So why don't you tell us the updated number then? Was it double of 4,000, 6,000? You can help me, or a direct source on air right now.
No, see, I mean, the order per minute is actually much more of a figure for all of our operating teams and our technology teams to basically be able to cope with the unprecedented demand. The reality is that we had an absolutely unprecedented number of total orders at dinner yesterday, and with the fact that some cities were locked in or had some restrictions, consumers were now back to understanding that food delivery is about the safest way to actually consume food. All of those trends put together meant that we literally had a year or day like never before. And we don't, share numbers publicly, but safe to say that this day has never been seen before in our history.
So, Vivek, safe to say that this was perhaps the best day for Swiggy, not just in 2020, but in its history, in terms of order, in terms of, order values or the business you did, any of the metrics that you would normally refer to.
Indeed, there are lots of superlatives. In fact, the analytics team is probably going to take a day just to look through how many records were smashed last night. Right now, I guess the two most important teams that worked flat out yesterday are taking their well-deserved rest. Our operations team, who were obviously bearing the brunt of all the surge that happened at dinner yesterday, and also our technology and other support teams that were going crazy. Call center, pretty much everybody was all hands on deck as of yesterday to be able to deal with it. But when the dust settles and we have the time to look back, we will find how many records have been smashed. But we had cities like, small cities that were smashing previously held records by 10 o'clock, and the day still had 2 hours left. Cities like Behrampur, etc. All cities were popping out and coming into us. We were obviously focusing very hard on servicing the orders that were coming in. But it's safe to say that many records were smashed, and across both growth figures, value, number of customers. I mean, for example, we got double the number of new users trying Swiggy for the first time yesterday versus the history. Like, think about it. Consumers trying out Swiggy for the first time doubled in yesterday because of the fact that this was such an amazing way to celebrate New Year safe at home with all of the restrictions and all of the other fear that people had of going out.
Right. Some interesting figures that I was looking at, Vivek. It turns out that Tier 2 and Tier 3 did very well for you. In fact, the cities that you mentioned, Behrampur, Karimnagar, cities like Jaipur, Vizag, what really happened there? Did the spike happen post 4:30? And are you seeing traction from these cities for the first time? Roorkela, Behrampur, Karimnagar, etc.?
So two macro trends, I think, contributed to this, Chandra. One of them is, and I think I've mentioned it before, obviously because of the nature of offices still being work from home, work from anywhere, there's a lot of talent that used to work in the Bangalores and the Delhis and the Mumbais of the world that have migrated back to their hometowns. And so a lot of these cities had seen a big surge anyway in terms of user population in the run-up to New Year, right? I mean, all through unlock, when unlock happened, a lot of them decided there's no point staying here. Why don't we stay with our mums and dads and work from there? So that meant that the consumer base was sitting in those cities much more than, let's say, last year. Now, when you then have the second phenomenon, which is, authorities trying to take it easy and knowing that, in the evening when there's celebration and festivities, it's not that easy to maintain social distancing, and you don't want a spike in the cases just because people got together for a happy occasion. Given that constraints that had been put in on social distancing and ordering in and curfews and stuff like that, the population coupled with the phenomenon of staying in at home meant that these cities just completely exploded. I mean, we had some cities growing 3x of their past. That's just never happened before. And it's just because of the fact that there is Swiggy consumers who are very familiar, very comfortable with the ordering in process. They love Swiggy. They're just ordering it in a different place. Plus the local who always used to live in these cities have found that this is such a fantastic way to celebrate safe with your friends and family that actually can stay with you. It was just an amazing sort of different phenomenon from any of the last 6 years that we've been in existence.
Right. And Vivek, what did well? What did people binge on? Was it the usual suspects, your biryanis and pizzas and chokolava cake and gulab jamuns and such, or were people more adventurous on New Year's Eve?
I think there were a lot of adventurous people, but given just the comfort of some of these old favorites of pizza ordering in and a biryani ordering in and a garlic bread ordering in, it's just funny how many people actually order garlic bread. So old favorites surged a lot. Obviously, in that massive mountain, you also had new herbs popping up. You had all sorts of new dishes also being ordered because people were also trying out stuff. But I think it's safe to say that the large peak that we had yesterday was still got the old favorites of biryani and pizza and desserts and stuff like that was there.
Right. And what sort of strain did this put on your logistics and delivery? Because, I tried ordering after 9 and one of my favorite restaurants was closed for delivery. I'm sure that was the case with many people who tried a little later. But in terms of the logistics, the delivery, were you really prepared for this extraordinary surge? I mean, it would have exceeded whatever numbers you were working with. So how did you really cope in terms of delivery, in terms of the back end and technology?
Sure. First of all, I mean, a massive shout out to the teams. Remember, they're humans too. It's New Year Eve for them, for the delivery boys and girls, the operations staff, the call center folks, the folks in technology, all of the support people were working even harder than they usually do because this was an unprecedented day. So they did cope a lot better than I had frankly imagined because the spike was just way beyond expectations. We did have some misses here and there in terms of, things blowing out. But thankfully, consumers were also patient. Like you were busy tweeting other things, but you didn't tweet about where's my food at 9 o'clock. Because consumers were patient. They realized that there's a lot of traffic out there. There's a lot of orders happening in. So consumers naturally relax their criteria for how much time they're willing to wait for food. And that just helped with coping with the surge that we had. That's one. The second sort of tip I will give you is that you clearly have an insider source inside Swiggy who was giving you all this order information. Maybe you should get the right insider information, which is the best time to order yesterday was 6:30 to 7:30, not the 8 to 9, because by then things in all hell had broken loose. Literally, the restaurants were not able to cope. The delivery partners were not able to take orders. It was just absolute chaos, but chaos in a good way because we largely fulfilled most of the orders. The cancellations were well below what we had expected for that kind of an order surge.
Right, I'll keep that in mind, Vivek. I will order my dinner well before 6 p.m. next time. But, yesterday was an unusual day, an unprecedented day. Do you expect this kind of surge, this momentum that yesterday gave you to kind of continue? Because we're also talking about a vaccine getting approved in India in the next few days. Perhaps people might go out more. So, how are you really preparing for the post-vaccine world, so to speak? Will you continue to see the same kind of surge that you saw during IPL, during Christmas, during New Year's, during Diwali?
So the short answer to the question is we are extremely optimistic about 21 for a variety of reasons. One of them is the fact that, when vaccines come in and people get a little more comfortable and offices get to a more hybrid or blended working environment where they will still have a lot more work from home, remote working, but also have meetings happening in or people coming into office. Some of the crowd that has actually gone to the smaller cities, etc., will come back. And that obviously is a big user base for us in the major cities that we operate in. The second one is people will order in a lot more working breakfasts. I mean, one of the phenomenons of the lockdown that sort of has gotten unnoticed is that the business on food delivery is typically three sort of increasing peaks. There's a little peak at breakfast, then a little bigger one at sort of lunch, and then a little plateau at sort of snack time in the evening, and then a massive peak at dinner time. But this is essentially a period where people are barely ordering in breakfast because, of course, you're not in office and ordering in any breakfast. You're at home and you're sort of not usually ordering in breakfast. So we think some of those trends will lead to a positive. The most important thing to note is the user base. We have seen relentlessly from the time unlock happened in a series of spikes. We had the anniversary movement in August. Then we had IPL for 51 days, which really helped a lot in getting dormant users to come back, people who were either scared of ordering in because they were fearing for transmission or anything of that sort, or fearing for outside food. A lot of them came back. And then in the Christmas New Year period, we had another massive surge in dormant users coming back. When these two things happen, see, when person becomes undormant, which is he starts becoming active, then he or she doesn't worry about the next time he has to order. It's just the long hiatus that's there. That's a problem for us. So as more and more people are coming into what is called the active user base, the business becomes sequentially healthier. And so we are essentially entering January with the healthiest user base that we have seen pretty much all year. In fact, yesterday was a bigger year than even the 3 months of the pre-COVID era that was part of calendar 2020. And that's a massive data set that even before COVID, we didn't have as good an orders and user number as we did yesterday.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, Vivek. But as we wrap up, I just want to understand, has this emboldened you to kind of expand to newer markets in India, hire more people? Because clearly there is a lot of demand coming in from tier 2, tier 3. People thought it was a transient phenomenon with people in the metros moving there, but maybe there is an underlying demand, maybe it will sustain. So are you kind of planning to expand to newer cities with your delivery network? And, since you also have Genie and Instamart and other offerings.
So the short answer to the question is, will there be more parts of Swiggy in more parts of India in 21? The short answer is yes. What does that mean? It means that there will be more cities with Genie, Instamart, etc., because those are obviously very popular and very, very life-saving services for many consumers. The second thing is we already were in very high number of cities, 550 cities prior to the lockdown. The good news is we never really need to shut down any of the cities because there was always demand in these cities. But a lot of the sort of, curtailing back that we had done in terms of the number of geographic zones we cover within those cities, etc., we will probably expand that back as two things happen, as continuously the business keeps improving, and importantly, as things like educational institutions start reopening, then you'll certainly see pockets of demand in geographic pins that today don't exist. I mean, if there was a college town that is largely operating remote, there is no point us operating there because pretty much all the student base and therefore the customer base has sort of gone home. As that repopulates, we will reopen and expand into more of these zones. So we do expect 21 to be a expansion year. Obviously, it probably will not be as crazy an expansion as the blitzscaling part of 2018, But there was a reason why we needed to do 2018 the way we did. And now coming off a much stronger base through IPL and the New Year Eve, we think 21 will be intelligent expansion of many more parts of Swiggy across more parts of the country.
Right. Finally, Vivek, before we let you go, help us with some numbers. Any numbers you can share on the GMV clocked yesterday, or at least in percentage terms, how much higher was it compared to New Year's Eve of 2020? And also the total number of delivery partners who would have worked on the Swiggy platform yesterday.
So I don't have the numbers top of the mind in terms of how many delivery partners were active, because a lot of shifts were happening. There was a lot of people swinging in and out. But I think it's safe to say that it was bigger and better in many ways than the 2019 New Year Eve. Remember that the 2019 New Year Eve was in a different pre-COVID world, or a world which many of us have forgotten by now, given how long this has lasted. But I think it's safe to say that we think about the New Year Eve 2020 as a much better and bigger New Year Eve than first what we had expected for sure. And second, in many parts of the 2019 experience also will be dwarfed by what we have seen yesterday.
Right. On that positive note, thank you very much for joining us on a day like this. Happy New Year to you and the entire team at Swiggy. As you said, it was New Year's for them too, but they kept working round the clock to ensure that customers get what they order. But thank you very much, and congratulations again on that extraordinary milestone day as far as Swiggy is concerned yesterday.
Thank you, Chandra, and I wish you a Happy New Year too.